before the hearing. Base your decision on the evidence you hear at the hearing and the applicable law. Don't participate in the hearing or the decision if you have a conflict of interest, and don't engage in ex parte contacts. Refrain from personal or retaliatory actions. Focus on key legislative and quasi-judicial issues and leave administrative matters to the staff. And maximize your liability protections by staying within the scope of your authority and avoiding willful and wanton conduct. I hope this video has helped you identify how to stay within the scope of your authority as an elected or appointed official, maximize your liability protections, and enhance your effectiveness as a civic leader. Good luck.
That video really does a nice job, particularly for City Council and Mayor. I understand we might have a few board members for various commissions here, and those rules do apply to you in a slightly more limited fashion because you have slightly more limited authorities. One of the things that I'd like to emphasize, and it was picked up in the video, is when you become a public official, when you speak to someone who hears you, you are always the voice of the city. Even if you don't intend to be the voice of the city and you think you are speaking privately. For example, social media, which is not covered in this video. I think it was done in 2008, and they have not released an update that would cover that. But you can have issues with social media, Facebook. I have not seen one arising out of Twitter, but I suspect something may come up. But if you say something and the public, a member of the public, sees that, they may take that as official city action or official city business when it's not. And that is a difficult bind when you want to speak personally. So, again, think in terms of we, not I, and think in terms of representing the city whenever you're in public. Another point that the video makes that is really helpful, and I should tell you, I see a lot of the liability claims that NPR sees because they come to me to determine, is this where someone was acting outside the scope of their authority? Is this where someone was doing something that would subject the body, the governmental entity, whether it's a commission, a board, a city council, board of aldermen, to punitive damages for willful and wanton behavior? Are there certain exceptions to the coverage that would preclude there being coverage? So I get a flavor of a lot of the types of claims that come through. And some of them that come through that can be very difficult in terms of your time and energy and city resources, also in terms of cost to defend, even if NPR is paying that. If NPR pays it, it gets figured into the rates for following years, so it does all come back to haunt you. Are personnel matters, where someone claims that they were fired or not promoted or reassigned to a different job that was a lesser job for some improper reason. Sometimes it's race. The common one in the last 2 or 3 years has most likely been sexual harassment, or that someone has retaliated. That was the example they put in the video, that the Director of Public Works tried to stop sexual harassment and the mayor retaliated against her. So I can't emphasize strongly enough, you have a city manager, you have HR people, you have a city attorney. Your job is to hire the best professionals and let them deal with those types of problems. You don't want to get your fingers into an administrative or a personnel type of decision because those can come back to bite you. Now, even if you keep your fingers out of it, that doesn't mean the city's not going to get sued. But if you stay out of it and leave it to the professionals to handle it, to do their jobs, chances are less likely you'll be sued and more likely that you will get out more quickly than if you have had too many people, too many fingers in the pie, basically. Too many cooks spoil the soup. If a lawsuit is filed, you may have to give a deposition. You may have to turn over documents. Some of that would come from the city. but it is entirely possible that you could be named as a defendant individually because you had something to do with the process, and there could be a request for your computer, your personal emails, your personal calendar. I've seen that one come up where someone says, I want to see Mayor so-and-so's or councilperson so-and-so's personal calendar for the last 4 years because it's relevant to show X pattern. You really just don't want to go there. So stay out of those. Another one that's come up, not so much in context of litigation, but in terms of requests, are the open meeting and open records issues. Have you kept something that should be an open record? Email is a prime example. If you're sending email out of your city account and it's on the city server, it's a public record and it can be produced. So don't forward jokes, don't forward anything that isn't business related, and try to, I think the advice is good. If you don't want to see it on the front page of the newspaper, don't put it in an email. And I struggle with that personally because I like to communicate by email, and it's very easy to whip off a quick response. And it might be a little snippy sometimes. I've been known to do that, and it comes back to haunt me. I've never seen one blown up in front of a jury yet, and I hope I never do. But keep in mind that email can be a very, very public forum. Some of the claims that come up frequently involve land use, planning and zoning. I think the things, you don't want to mess with somebody's job or their livelihood. You don't want to mess with their property. So, as was emphasized in the video, if you are hearing something in a quasi-judicial capacity where you're going to vote on an application for a land use permit, also for committee members, if you have any planning and zoning members, be very careful to be neutral, to listen to the evidence at the hearing, to make your decision based on that and only on that, and know that some of those lawsuits may come up. One of the claims that came up very early on when I first began doing this for NPR involved a city council, and it was a development district, and there were some issues over whether the staff thought it should be approved or not, and one of the council members accused the lawyer for the developer very publicly of lying to the council at a previous meeting. And he then put it in email, which didn't help because now we had it in written form. And when the lawsuit got filed, the city got sued, and this councilman got named individually. And when they named him individually on the defamation claim, the allegation was specifically that the defamation was committed in his individual capacity, not in his capacity as a council person, and that was not covered under NPR's coverage document, because you are a member only to the extent you are acting in the course and scope of your duties as an elected or appointed official. So, fortunately, that claim settled very quickly, and it didn't go all the way to trial, but you don't want to be sitting in that councilman's seat if a lawsuit gets filed. There are claims. You are going to have claims. I don't know any way to tell you not to have claims other than perhaps to get yourself unelected, which is not popular advice. There will be claims for law enforcement. Those do come in. There will be claims for employment discrimination. Those do come in. But if you have treated people fairly, and if the administrator who is responsible has treated people fairly, it is much, much easier to defend the lawsuit and get you out of it very quickly so that you aren't putting time and energy towards a lawsuit, you are not being held up in the press as a bad example, and you are not having to worry about either paying something out of your own pocket or seeing your premiums rise in following years. So those are the key areas we would advise you to be very, very wary of and cognizant of. But if there are any questions, I will do my best to try to answer them. Okay. Well, I hope you don't have to see me again for a couple of years, but thank you very much for letting us have the podium tonight.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, at this time, we're going to open the floor for public comments. Members of the public are invited to come forward and make comments about city matters or items that are on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. please come forward, state your name for the record, and be heard.